level of a saint. He's not like the Kauravas headed by Duryodhana. He would rather let them have the kingdom. He would rather not fight on moral grounds, at least moral grounds from his angle of vision. Now, in the next section, Arjuna's arguments continue, but from a different angle of vision. Arjuna continues, with the destruction of dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. When irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood comes unwanted progeny. When there is an increase of unwanted population, certainly this causes hellish life, both for the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performances for offering them food and water are entirely stopped. And by the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition, thus giving rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. O Janardhan, maintainer of the people, I have heard by disciplic succession that those who destroy family traditions dwell always in hell. This concept of disciplic succession is a fundamental principle of Vedic culture. Vedic culture believes that knowledge descends from the higher authorities. In Western tradition, man is encouraged to seek out knowledge by means of one's own sense perception and experiment and observation. But in Vedic culture, the knowledge is said to be descending from God, the perfect source, and then coming down to human society by a chain of spiritual master and disciple. So Arjuna refers to this when he says, I have heard by disciplic succession. Means he has heard it from his teacher, he has heard it in the scriptures. Alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful acts. Driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness, we are intent on killing our own kinsmen. Better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, with weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. So just see Arjuna's state of mind. In the next chapter, we will see what Krishna thinks of Arjuna's present state of mind. Sanjaya said, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows, sat down on his chariot, with his mind overwhelmed with grief. So this sets the scene of the entire Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna had asked Krishna to take his chariot so that he could see who has assembled here on day one of the battle. And when Krishna said, behold, the Kurus, Arjuna saw, and he became overwhelmed by compassion. And from two different angles of vision, he has given very good reasons, at least seemingly good reasons, why he does not want to fight. But as Bhagavad Gita progresses, we will see over and over again, Krishna will repeat the same message. Consistently, Krishna says, Arjuna, get up and fight. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Tat Sat. Bhagavad Gita as it is. Chapter 2 contains 72 verses and is entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized. In verses 1 through 10, Arjuna will surrender to Krishna. Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana, Krishna, spoke the following words. In chapter 1, we saw that Arjuna requested Krishna to take his chariot in the midst of both the armies so that he could see who he had to fight. But when he saw on the other side his friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion and gave arguments stating why he did not think he should fight this battle. Now we will see how Krishna responds to Arjuna's state of mind. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy." In this verse, Krishna appears to not be pleased or approved of what Arjuna is saying or thinking. Krishna is wondering why Arjuna is behaving in this way. He uses the word non-Aryan. An Aryan is one who knows the value of life. The value of life is spiritual emancipation. Arjuna's statements in Krishna's mind are not spoken of those who are of the Aryan state of mind. Krishna will continue. O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading impotency, for it does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. So Krishna, at this point, wants Arjuna to fight the battle. And he's chastising Arjuna. He wants Arjuna to do his duty. Now Arjuna responds. Arjuna said, O Arisudana, killer of enemies, O Madhusudana, killer of Madhu, how can I counteract with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona, who are worthy of my worship? It would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on this battlefield. So Arjuna is certainly perplexed. He doesn't know what to do. He cannot see how anything good can come out of this battle, and yet he knows that he should fight the battle. So he's confused. Now in the next verse, this is the turning point of this Bhagavad Gita, for we shall see that Arjuna makes a very good decision. Now I am confused about my duty, and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple, and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. I can find no means to drive away this grief, which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it, even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth, with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. So, what is most significant is that Arjuna admits his weakness. He admits his failure. He admits his confusion. But what is important is that he has enough intelligence to surrender to Krishna. He has accepted Krishna now as his guru, and Krishna will pick up the position and act accordingly. Now they won't deal with each other as friends. Krishna will assume the position of teacher and will instruct Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. And this is very important, because if we want to understand Bhagavad Gita, then we at least have to theoretically accept that Krishna is the supreme original guru, the supreme teacher. If we can accept this, at least theoretically, then the understanding of Bhagavad Gita will become easy. But if we think Krishna is just an ordinary human being, then we'll not understand Bhagavad Gita properly, and it will become confusing. So at least to understand Bhagavad Gita rightly, we have to accept that Krishna is the supreme guru, the supreme teacher. And notice Arjuna says, "Now I am a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me." This is the proper mood for understanding Bhagavad Gita, and we should follow in the footsteps of Arjuna. Sanjaya said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, "O Govinda, I shall not fight," and then fell silent. O descendant of Bharat and Dhritarashtra, at that time Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. So, in the next section, verses 11 through 30, we can entitle it Sankhya. And in these 20 verses, Krishna will explain the difference between the body and the soul, the difference between matter and spirit, and the difference between what is temporary and what is eternal. And this is the beginning of transcendental knowledge. This is the beginning of the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "While speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be." This verse is very significant, because here Krishna is speaking the fact that the true identity of the person is not the body and not the mind. It is eternal spirit soul. And notice Krishna says, "Never was there a time when I did not exist." That means, by definition, Krishna, being God, always existed in the past, exists at present, and will continue to exist in the future. And notice Krishna also said, and the same is true for you and all these kings. In this most significant verse of Bhagavad Gita, the eternality of soul is established. And therefore, we should understand you, I, everyone have always existed as individuals in the past, just as we exist individually at present, and our eternal individual existence will continue forever. This is a very important instruction and marks the beginning of transcendental knowledge. Now Krishna goes on. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body, from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. In this very significant verse of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains the fact of what we call transmigration or reincarnation of the soul. And he gave a very practical understanding. Everyone realizes or perceives that the body is changing year by year, boyhood, youth, old age, but you, the person who's experiencing the changes of the body, you remain the same. So just as we are changing bodies now in the present life, so similarly, at the time of so-called death, one will simply change into another body. This is what Krishna is saying in this very poignant verse. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharat, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress, who is steady in both, is certainly eligible for liberation. So liberation, this is the goal of the Aryan civilization. And here Krishna is giving one aspect of how to achieve liberation. One must learn to become tolerant and equipoised in the dualities of this material world. And this will be a theme that Krishna repeats throughout the Bhagavad Gita. He continues, those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent there is no endurance, and of the eternal there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. So this is the difference between matter and spirit, the body and the soul. What is eternal, what is temporary? Anything material has temporary existence, and anything which is spiritual has eternal existence. That which pervades the entire body you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. So what is that which pervades the entire body? It is called consciousness. And consciousness is the symptom of the soul's presence in the body. And this consciousness is not material, because the soul is not material. The material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore fight, O descendant of Bharat. So on the basis of what Krishna has explained so far, he still wants Arjuna to fight the battle. And he's making a very clear differentiation between the body and the soul. The soul is inhabiting the body, but the body is not the soul. They're two distinct items. Neither one who thinks the living entity to be the slayer, nor one who thinks the living entity to be slain is in knowledge. For the self slays not, nor is slain. Yes, the soul is eternal, so you cannot kill the soul. The body can be killed, but not the soul. For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. It has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. It is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, permanent, primeval, and the oldest. It is not slain when the body is slain. So Krishna is repeating and hammering this point. He wants Arjuna and all of us to understand the clear distinction between the temporary body and the eternal soul. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, always existing, unborn, and immeasurable, kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? As a person puts on new garments, giving up the old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. This is a very nice analogy given by Krishna. Earlier, he gave the example boyhood to youth to old age. The soul is experiencing the changes of the body, but the same soul is experiencing the changes. This example in this verse is even more clearer. That daily we change our set of clothes, but that doesn't mean we change. Similarly, we accept bodies one after another, but we remain the same. This is the beginning understanding of transcendental knowledge. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind, because all of these are material things which definitely affect the material body, but Krishna is pointing out these things cannot affect the soul. The individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burned nor dried. It is everlasting, present everywhere, all-pervading, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. We should not misunderstand when Krishna said here that the soul is all-pervading. What Krishna is saying actually is that there are souls everywhere. It's not that you and I, the individual soul, is all-pervading. That is reserved for Krishna. We will learn this throughout Bhagavad Gita, especially in chapter 13. My consciousness, your consciousness, is limited to the extent of this body. So when Krishna says the soul is all-pervading, he's not referring to the idea that the individual soul is all-pervading. No. The souls are all-pervading. There are souls everywhere. But Krishna, represented as the Paramatma, the super soul in everybody's heart, he's all-pervading. This we will learn later in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna continues, it is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, immutable, and unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. But if, however, you think that the soul, or the symptoms of life, is always being born and then dies forever, you still have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. So Krishna is pointing out here to Arjuna that whatever he was thinking is simply not very intelligent. For whether you believe in the existence of the soul or not, still you have no reason to lament for the inevitable destruction of your family members on the other side. And Krishna will again repeat throughout Bhagavad Gita that he wants Arjuna to fight the battle. One who has taken birth is sure to die, and after death, one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Throughout this section, these 20 verses of Sankhya, Krishna repeatedly tells Arjuna he does not deserve to lament. Na tvang shochitam arhasi. And it's based on knowledge, and it's based on a clear understanding of the difference between the temporary material body and the eternal spirit soul. Here again, Krishna is reiterating what he said earlier in this section, that as the soul gives up material bodies, it takes new ones. Again, Krishna is saying, if you're born, you're going to die. And once you have died, you're going to take birth again. Because death only refers to the body. It does not refer to the soul. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and then unmanifest again when annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? Of course, when Krishna says manifest and unmanifest, he's referring to how the individual soul appears in a particular body in this material world. But the soul, this whole concept of manifest, is only from the position of the material world. Because after death, the soul immediately takes birth somewhere else. It just appears that it's not manifest, but it is manifesting in another material body. Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe it as amazing, and some hear of it as amazing, while others, even after hearing about the soul, cannot understand it at all. And we've had practical experience of this, and perhaps you have also, that if you tried to explain this section of Bhagavad Gita, the difference between the body and the soul, to some people, they completely disbelieve that there's anything called soul. Many people, especially nowadays, perhaps most people, deny the existence of the soul. They think all we know is that we exist as this body. So therefore, for some people, if not many people, this discussion of the soul will seem to them to be very amazing, and they may not be able to understand it. Actually, we cannot understand or accept the existence of God or the soul other than on the basis of this Bhagavad Gita. Unless Krishna or God explains this to us, it will be most difficult to experience it independently. O descendant of Bharat, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living being. So this ends this particular section of chapter 2, Sankhya, the difference between matter and spirit, the difference between the body and the soul, the difference between temporary existence and eternal existence. Now, in verses 31 through 38, Krishna will explain to Arjuna why he should fight based on his duty as a kshatriya, or religious warrior. Considering your specific duty as a kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. O Partha, happy are the kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, thus opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. If, however, you do not perform your religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duty, and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. People will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words, and they will scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight. And do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat. By so doing, you shall never incur sin. So here Krishna is very clear that he wants Arjuna to fight. And for Arjuna, actually, Krishna is pointing out, Arjuna, it's a win-win situation. You should fight this battle. You should be detached. It's your duty. If you die in the battle for the right cause, which it is, then as a result, in your next life, you will reside in the heavenly planets with the demigods. But if you fight the battle and win, you will rule over the earth. Therefore, what have you got to lose, Arjuna? This is Krishna's main argument. Krishna does not think there is any good reason for Arjuna not to fight this religious war. Now, in verses 39 through 53,